Professor Zixthala adjusted her environmental suit for the 15th time, her chitinous fingers trembling as she checked the atmospheric readings from the observation deck of the education vessel Scholarly Pursuit. Below them, the blue-green marble of Earth rotated lazily, its surface scarred with the telltale signs of a Clastothian Deathworld, chaotic weather patterns, volatile tectonic activity, and an atmosphere so corrosive it could dissolve most civilized species' carapaces within cycles. "Professor," chirped Kleetak, one of her more enthusiastic students, "when do we begin the surface expedition?" Zixithala's compound eyes dilated with barely controlled terror. We observe from here, young one. Quite sufficient for educational purposes." The 23 students from various species, Velthari with their crystalline forms, gaseous, Nethmari contained in mobility suits, and several bipedal Corvani, pressed against the viewport with barely contained excitement. This was, after all, the field trip of a lifetime, a chance to study the most notorious Deathworld in known space, home to the legendary humans. "But Professor," insisted Velnasa, her crystal body chiming with confusion, "the humans specifically invited us to visit their surface. They seemed pleased about it." Zixthala shuddered. Pleased. Of course the humans were pleased. The same species that had somehow evolved on a planet where the very rain was acidic, where massive storms could level continents, and where the dominant predators included creatures that could crush a Velthari's crystal matrix with their bare appendages. The same humans who had joined the Galactic Federation, not as refugees seeking sanctuary from their hellish world, but as explorers eager to find new challenges. A soft chime indicated an incoming transmission. The main view screen flickered to life, revealing the unnaturally symmetrical face of a human, Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Force. Her expression bore what Zixithala had learned was called a smile, though it still looked disturbingly predatory to most civilized species. "Greetings, Professor Zixithala. We've prepared a wonderful itinerary for your students. We'll start with a gentle hike through the Amazon rainforest. Don't worry, we've cleared out most of the jaguars and poisonous snakes from the trail. Then, perhaps some swimming with the dolphins, followed by a mountain climbing expedition in the Himalayas." Each activity made Zixthala's terror glands secrete more profusely. Swimming? In open water teeming with predators? Mountain climbing on a world where atmospheric pressure could crush most species? That sounds vigorous, Zixithala managed. "Perhaps we could simply observe your urban centers from orbit?" Captain Chen's smile widened. Definitely predatory now. "Nonsense. The kids will love it. Oh, and we've arranged for them to meet some local wildlife. My daughter's bringing her pet python, and the local zoo is letting us borrow a few lions for a close-up educational experience." In the background, Zixthala could see human children, actual offspring, playing in what appeared to be a war zone, laughing as they threw projectiles at each other and engaged in mock combat. One small human hung upside down from a metal structure, defying gravity with the casual indifference that made humans so terrifying to contemplate. "Professor," whispered Jorth, a young Corvani, whose scales were pale with excitement, "my research indicates that human children regularly engage in activities that would hospitalize most adult sentients. They call it playing." "I'm aware," Zixthala replied grimly. The transmission continued with Captain Chen enthusiastically describing their plans. "We've also arranged for a cultural exchange. Your students can experience human cuisine. We're having a barbecue with Carolina Reaper peppers, followed by some traditional fermented shark. And if they're feeling adventurous, we can take them skydiving." Skydiving. Throwing oneself from aircraft toward the surface of a Deathworld, trusting primitive technology to prevent total obliteration. Kleetak's antennae were practically vibrating with excitement. "Professor, this is the opportunity of several lifetimes. When will we shuttle down?" All 23 students turned to look at her with various expressions of eager anticipation. Zixthala realized that despite her terror, she had a responsibility to these young minds. They had traveled across the galaxy for this educational experience. But surely there was a compromise. "Attention, human vessel. she transmitted back, her voice only slightly quavering. While we appreciate your generous invitation, I believe we should start with a more gradual introduction to your world's environment. Captain Chen tilted her head. Oh, you're worried about the safety protocols. Don't worry. We've got full medical teams standing by, and our mortality rate for interspecies visitors is down to less than 15%. 15%. 15%. Perhaps, Zixthala continued desperately, we could begin with a virtual tour, or maybe examine some of your less dangerous flora and fauna from a distance. The human captain paused, and for a moment, her expression softened into something that might have been understanding. Professor, I get it. Earth can seem pretty intense to folks from more civilized worlds. How about this? We'll bring a few samples up to your ship, some of our gentler specimens. Relief flooded through Zixthala's system. That would be most acceptable. An hour later, as she watched her students cautiously examine a small earth creature called a butterfly, while 3 heavily armed human marines stood guard, just in case, Zixthala reflected on the curious nature of humans. Here was a species so adapted to violence and danger that they needed armed guards to protect aliens from a butterfly. Yet they had somehow developed into one of the most diplomatically successful species in the Federation. The butterfly fluttered delicately around Kletak's antennae, and the young student's joy was palpable. Professor, it's beautiful, and it doesn't appear to have any visible weapons. Actually, interjected Sergeant Martinez, one of the Marines, this species migrates over 4,000 kilometers through storms, temperature extremes, and predator-filled territories. They're pretty tough little guys. Of course they were. Even the decorative creatures on Earth were warriors. As Zixthala watched her students wonder at this small piece of the Deathworld below, she began to understand something profound about humans. They didn't just survive their hellish planet. They had learned to find beauty in it, to celebrate its dangers, and to share that appreciation with others. It was perhaps the most alien thing about them, and somehow the most admirable. She still wasn't going to set foot on that nightmare world, though. Some educational experiences were best appreciated from a very, very safe distance.